What do you think the hammer was?
Well, actually, the hammer itself was, I have one home very similar to it. They did use them back in the days when the prairie schooners were going across Kansas and places of that sort. There's a hammer that they made and used. It was sort of like chisel end on one end and half or square on the other, very small, just about yay wide with a wooden handle. They were used when the wagon trains, the wheels, the rims would go bad because of the rust and so forth, and they put a new rim on there. The rim would be heated, and then they'd take those hammers and beat them into place until then, when it cooled, it would shrink, of course, and the rim, new rim back on the wagon wheel was all right. That's where, and then of course on top of that, that was the primary thing that they were used for. But the blacksmiths, like my father was at one time, he used it, and that's, I think, where we got the one that we have at home, and it's identically the same as the one that's supposedly found in the rock there in Texas. It's in the rock, but I mean, it's not what they claim it to be.
Have you seen other formations that form fast on different objects?
Yes, they have whole sets of them in some museums called pseudo-fossils. And some of you that might have visited Luray Caverns, Endless Caverns, or any one of those, they have on display, or did have, even up to the Skyline Drive Cavern. That's another interesting thing. But the fact of the matter is, on some of those things, it's just the way that it's put together. You just have to give a lot of thought to it as far as that's concerned, as far as the objects. But you'll find there at Luray, they have found wristwatches, they have found fountain pens, they have found pencils, rings, bracelets, necklaces, all of these different things in a piece of rock that may be as big or bigger than a football. You can look, just it's sort of an amber color, but you can see them in there. Now, they could say that these watches were the first watchmakers back in prehistoric time, but that's not so. It's just the fact that in the days of working in Luray, sometimes these watches get lost, or people would lose a ring, and once they get covered with these constant drippings of the calcite, they would get covered. And they've even found frogs in them, and they have found insects in them, but it's not the amber where you'd find the fossil type. But they have all kind of arguments on some of those things. One of the most interesting.
What about in South Dakota? There's hot springs where it'll form concretions on hammers and other things.
Yes, that's very true too. There's places at the Yellowstone where you have the great geysers and the hot water coming up. There are a number of places there near where the tourists have been. They get up close for a camera, but they may drop a watch off, or sometimes they've even found a rare occasion to find a camera in there where it'd be completely covered over, maybe 10 or 15 inches covered with some of this formation that comes out of those geysers and so forth, just bubble up and pass over. Some of them are very clear to see, and some of them you can just barely see them in there. But there's all kind of things that have. They had at one time, there was a collar off of a dog that somebody had had. It was stuck in there, chains and rings and watches and hairpins and bobby pins and everything you can name of. They find them, and the people that work there chop them out and take them in for exhibit. If you've been out there, maybe you've seen some of them.